Welcome to LA Cam, welcome to our space. Thank you all for coming here. We're going to get started now. As you know, we're going to be talking about DCFS and the ways that they invade and operate in our communities. So I really thank you all for being here for this really, really important conversation. But before we get started, we're going to kick off with an amazing poet called Kiki. We're going to share some.
Hi, again, my name is Kiki, and I'm going to be performing a poem called If the Crown Fits. Someone once asked me, what makes me think we could change the world? They were a non-believer. So I sat back in my chair and said, first off, I don't think. We create our fate. Secondly, it is our birthright, passed down in the darkness you used to engulf our ancestors. I told them the torch was always meant to be passed down. I told them this generation are the children of God, with bright lights for hearts that beat to the drum of motherland. Building our pathways, we are the future. Creating the past, living the present. I told them we are branding the world a brighter shade of happy. We were born change makers. We are climbing to new heights and carrying the bones of our ancestors on our backs, remembering and creating tradition with the same flip of a coin. I said to them, non-believer, we are here to make you believe, and we will make you believe. Excuse me. We are molded from the tears of God and gold dust. We are taking unity viral. We came to mix the world up, throw everybody in a pot till we'll become one again. I told them, I know we can change the world because we are changing the world. We are resurrecting kingdoms, and the crown fits perfectly. Ooh. Yeah.
Thank you for blessing us with that poem. So we're going to have a conversation tonight, and it's really personal to me, and I know a lot of people in this room. Oftentimes we talk about how violence shows up in our communities, and a lot of the times we focus on, the police and other agents and agencies, rightly so. But very rarely do we talk about the ways in which DCFS operates and impacts our communities, and just how violent and devastating they are in our communities. So we're going to take a real deep dive tonight and talk about that. But before we get started, I just want to acknowledge all of the people that put in amazing work to produce this report that we're going to hand out at the end, so you all have a copy too. So we were working in collaboration with Stop LAPD Spying, and a student by the name of, I think she's also a member of Stop LAPD Spying as well, Victoria Copeland, and obviously the amazing women at DWAC. Victoria has been doing just amazing work on this report, putting in crazy hours and really produced an amazing piece with us. Unfortunately, she's not able to join us tonight. She's not well, so we're sending healing energy to our sister Victoria. But she sent a note that she wanted me to read out and share with you all. So I'm just going to share it with you all. So she says, working on this report was so special to me. I want to thank all the mothers and all of the organizers at DWAC and Stop LAPD Spying for continuing to inspire me. Thank you for sharing your stories and ideas for a better world. I remember the first meeting for this research collaboration. I thought I was so ready, and then in the first 2 minutes, people started sobbing. I realized I forgot tissue. I didn't realize how much this space was needed to not only share the heartbreaking truth about family policing system, but to also support one another. I think every single person cried at least once over the span of our community conversations. It was so emotional. But not only were there tears, there was extraordinary power in each conversation. There was a chorus of strength and support for one another, and it was so beautiful. Within the grief-filled stories was laughter of joy and moments of triumph, strength, and refusal. And that's the essence of this work. It's not just about refusing a system that doesn't work for us. It's about centering the answers that we already have and finding a way to make our plans a sustainable reality. It's about resistance and creation, joy, and care. When reading this project, I want people to understand the deep histories of surveillance within the child welfare system in Skid Row. I want people to read about how social service agencies, mental health departments, homeless shelters, and nonprofit team up to trap women who are poor or unhoused. These systems that market themselves as helpers, when they really help each other divide and conquer families, and their community bonds. In our conversations, we spoke with mothers of all ages, and we spoke with generations of mothers because this system is relentlessly harming generations of families. In conversations, we had grandmothers, mothers, and daughters coming to talk about the shattering impact of our community surveillance, and this has to end. In the face of a pandemic and continued state violence in Skid Row, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors continues to allow for the proliferation of new technological tools like the risk stratification model that will undoubtedly help them bolster the system. These tools categorize mothers as risky, leading to increased removal of their children or added surveillance. And this surveillance expands from DCFS into community programs. In fact, a new initiative of mandatory supporting just got approved by the board and intends to decide who can be better served in community programs. And it doesn't even repeal mandatory reporting laws that we discuss in the report. Just as we see in community policing, I asked, when will we learn what is a carceral reform and what is working towards abolition? As stated in our report, nonprofits and community programs have aided DCFS in reporting and tracking families for decades, particularly in Skid Row. Mothers today will tell you that the homeless shelters and community programs are some of the worst offenders of mandatory reporting, abuse, and neglect. And this is not the answer. So all this to say, I hope that when reading this report, you truly hear the mothers when we say we need to dismantle the entire system. That we do not need more reforms that add surveillance and harm. I hope you hear when we say to put the money directly into the pockets of individuals and families so that they can live, find joy, feel supported, and have time to create and sustain alternatives to the carceral systems that exist. We demand abolition, we demand life-affirming care, and we demand it now with love to be. Just to give a brief introduction, I want to call my brother Hamid up, who's also going to be part of the panel. So Hamid.
Thank you.
When you're talking to someone.
Thank you, Monique, and thank you, everybody. Good evening, everybody. My name is Hamid. I go by he, him. I'm an organizer here with South LAPD Slime Coalition. So it's been such an incredible honor to be a part of such powerful people in bearing and exposing the violence of the state. How that violence is orchestrated, how data is used to trace and track and monitor our lives, and how our lives are policed. And one of the things very central to this report that you will see that we're going to be talking about is to really kind of just debunk some of the things around state services and county services. Because many a times we look at them as a benevolent act of the state, that, well, they're going to provide us care. Well, the more you go deep into this, the more you unearth things, you find that, you know, there are various layers that rather than care, they cause a lot of harm. They cause a lot of harm, which is, while physical harm is so obvious and we can see that, but the emotional scarring that happens over time runs through generations. So that's what we are trying to do at Stop LAPD Slime Coalition, is to broaden the scope of our understanding that what surveillance means and how does it happen? Not just by the military, not just by the FBI, not just by the LAPD, but the day-to-day of our living. The day-to-day of you know, how we move around, whether it's to a bank, whether we go to a grocery store. So we live in what we call here a stalker state, where our bodies are constantly stalked, monitored, and traced and tracked. So this report is a buildup from a previous report that we released in October of 2020 about abolishing surveillance and DCFS, which basically just identified the structure of that. But the second part is a much more deeper dive, especially in partnership, and we're really honored to be in partnership with the Downtown Women's Action Coalition, and really sending a lot of love to Victoria Copeland, whose efforts and whose work just really lift our voices and research. So I'm just gonna so typically, so what we have done is this is what we have mapped out as the LAPD's architectural surveillance, how different ways, both on a human level, and I also want to emphasize that surveillance is nothing new. It didn't start after 9/11. It didn't start with the FBI. It didn't start with the Red Squads. It has always been going on. I see you, and I control you, and I see you. I see your movements. So it's a form of social control in an interpersonal relationship, in a family, in a community, in a state, and on a global level. So surveillance, what we call the analog person-to-person surveillance, is very common. This is where we just added a few things that when you're doing different things, when you're in your car, when you're on your phone, when you're just kind of minding your own business, sitting in a park. So surveillance and data collection is constantly happening. It is 24/7, right? So then how does it manifest then? This is what we created, what we call the Stalker state. And what we are trying to show here is that how streams of information, data moves within various systems, whether it's the public sector, the private sector, law enforcement agencies, the FBI, international agencies, constantly our bodies and what we call datafication of our bodies, and they're spliced into little data points, right? You go on social media, you're talking to somebody, you're looking at your favorite shoes, you're looking at a place to go eat, you're looking for movies, you're looking for whatever, right? Constantly that information is splicing it up. So somebody's going to grab that and say, yo, I can just sell them some shoes. Somebody can grab them and say, oh, I can just move them in a certain direction to a restaurant. Somebody's going to pick it up and say, I can move them into some other thing. So constantly, it's a surgical operation that is going on our thinking. And that's what is going on. So how it plays out, for example, this is just what we identified, that how our information at DMV, when you go get a license or when you go get an ID, how many different places, and this is only what we know, that how many different places and state agencies and government and everybody else has access to all our information. This is just the Department of Motor Vehicle. Let's look at something else. It says HUD, Housing and Urban Development. This is how all our information is spliced up, and it's kind of just farmed out into all of these different agencies. Another quick snapshot, your health. But this is what we found out about Department of Children and Family Services. This was a part of part one of the report, which was from October 2020, and I want to honor the work of Ramshah Sajid, another student who helped us put it all together. So this is how all of this information moves and how these databases are created, right? So now the second part, which report that we are going to be talking about today, was basically built on this infrastructure that we researched and identified, that where the criminalization of our bodies are going on, how constantly we are being criminalized, how we are being demonized, how there's a target constantly being put on us, in so many different ways. What happens is that, and I'm just using this is just an example of, you may have heard the word algorithm. Now everybody's talking about algorithms, and I don't really understand what an algorithm is. I think of it of an algorithm like a milkshaker. You throw in a lot of different things, right? And something else comes out. If you're having a banana shake, you throw in bananas, just sugar, you throw in milk or whatever. I mean, I'm not a scientist, I'm just an organizer. So that's what it is. So this is an example of an LAPD predictive policing algorithm, like Threadfold. And this is the most bogus thing that we have ever seen. And this is an algorithm basically, which is used to predict earthquakes. So then these academics, a professor from UCLA decided that, well, gee, wait a minute. So if you can use this thing to predict earthquakes, you can also use this to predict crime. And this fool went into this old style anthropology thinking that when he used this theory of Tibet, out there in northern India and China, of Tibetan plateau, and how stones, I mean, I don't want to get into it, it's just really bogus and complicated, but this is the science bogus science that is now policing us and controlling us. So that's how these things are formed. Now, as far as the DCFS is concerned, this is where all of this risk stratification model, they use this language, which, you need like several degrees to even understand what they are saying, but it is done intentionally. It is done intentionally to confuse us. It is done intentionally to keep us busy. And it's done intentionally to create this facade of that we are experts in this thing. So what we are writing like risk stratification model. What do you mean by that? Well, for me, it really means that you're just criminalizing. You're going to demonize me. I mean, you consider my body, my being. My name is Hamid Hussain Khan. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Pakistan. So my risk stratification model is that, he may be a potential terrorist. All right, so let's keep it simple. Let's keep it very basic because of the faith that I grew up in, the country that I was born in, the name that I have, and what I do. So that's the kind of stuff. But here, what it does is that it goes through various different types of milkshakers. So now your information is shaken around. So, for example, the way the information is being collected by DCFS is on a very baseline level that they use data from 1 million different people who have come through DCFS for many, many, many years that they've been collecting data on. Then that data is put together, like, you bring a different data set. You bring a different data set, you bring a different data set, I bring a different data set, but they bring it all together and create that baseline. So when a new person comes in, then that data becomes a part of that old data. And again, it's mixed together. And that's how these risks are established. I mean, I'm really, really super simplifying it because it can get super complicated, but it really comes down to this. There's a lot of BS in this thing. Right. So this is what they do. So now a call comes in of maltreatment. It goes to a hotline person. It goes through all of these things, the family ties, these different models, goes to investigation. Then it's given to a caseworker. And then all of a sudden the case is open. And then they say, well, just what are we going to do? Collateral interviews, blah, 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 blah. So that's how this thing moves. And that's how people are criminalized. And next thing you know, somebody's child is taken away. Or children are taken away. So nothing else is got to put it in there. This is another example. So now this is an example of how that this is a model from 2021. And it says that as of 2021, the model's coded features are predictors from such and such that included referral information date, time, demographics, prior referrals, allegations, cases, placements, and other. So a lot of different stuff is being gathered. And then this is establishing that whether you're a complex risk flag, which means that, okay, you're super risk. So we're going to really, it's almost a carceral thing, always being putting somebody in jail. So that's what this is doing. Here are a few things that, just to on the same thing that I'm talking about, that can somebody read this so we can all hear what they say? Anybody? Please.
The gray right there?
Yeah.
Okay. They do it the way they want to, as long as they type the stuff in the computer, and that's what they know about you. You come in there a certain day, you say certain words, they type it. If you're aggressive that day, they type it. And they're not gonna say the day you came in nice. The aggressive part is gonna be all over. And that's the way they're gonna treat you.
So now this is a baseline.
Yeah.
This is the algorithm. So, so-and-so, well, I have to change 3 buses. I have to walk in the rain. I'm coming over here for some support because you're supposed to be a care facility. But then, I'm just trying to come here and I'm like, yo, man, this was really messed up. This was such a bad day. And now all of a sudden somebody says, well, come on, just leave me alone for a second. You're being aggressive. We're going to just put you with a red flag and a target on you. And next thing you know, we're going to separate your family. And this is actually a quote from a caseworker at DCFS. This is not something that you have made it up. Here's something else. So during our conversations over here, what a couple different moms shared. Can anybody else read that? Please.
I remember when I went to court with my kids, and they told me that if I didn't have a mailing address, that I wouldn't be able to meet in the court. to get my children. So they took my children that same day because I didn't have a mailing address.
So now here's something else, you criminalize people who, because may not have a mailing address. And this is exactly just putting a target and criminalizing. Second quote, somebody else wants to read it?
My daughter is diagnosed schizoaffective. So because she's diagnosed schizoaffective, they already judged her. They say she was retarded, she can't handle nothing. So they literally put in a report that my daughter was hallucinating. And they went after my granddaughter tooth and nail the whole 3 years. And my daughter didn't have any teeth, stereotyping her. Oh, you've been on drugs all your life, you don't have no teeth. No, my daughter have no teeth because she had gingivitis. She has a gum disease. That's why she has no teeth. Not that that has to do with, and not that that has anything to do with my granddaughter.
So now what is happening over here? No access to healthcare. You can't afford to go to see a doctor. They won't let you in. You go to a clinic, you go to a general hospital, you gotta sit there all day long, wait and wait and wait, frustrations happen.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to go to a job, you got maybe 2 jobs, but then, you know, just because you can do that,
Yeah.
you don't have access to a dentist,
No.
and gingivitis happens. But then again, it is seen as an intentional neglect.
Yeah.
It's seen as maltreatment. It's seen as violence. It's seen like, you know, so again, criminalization of parents, criminalization of children, that continues to happen.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from a caseworker as well. That how, and they framed this in the context of during slavery, that how children were taken away. And this is what, can somebody else read that? Go ahead.
Me?
I thought you were.
Oh, yeah, we just want black babies. We don't, if they're older than 5, we don't want them. They want black babies. I mean, you know, your preference, okay, but the just specifically not a baby, just always just want black babies. We want the black babies.
This was another quote from a caseworker who actually just like, you know, after just being there, they're like, this is, I mean, I have to tell you this. This is exactly how these things happen, and this is how they categorize and how racial stereotypes and racism, and it's a continuation of enslavement. It's a continuation of colonization. It's a continuation of that white supremacist violence that generationally people have seen, and it continues on in so many different ways. So I will stop there. I think that was it. Yeah, I will stop there, and then we continue on with the conversation. Thank you.
I meant to ask earlier, does anybody mind taking photographs in the room? No? Okay, thank you. So how we're going to do this, we really want this to be as interactive as possible. Come and join us, Tash. But what we're going to do is I'm going to have a conversation with the experts, you know, in the room. And so this is some of the women that work and organize with it, also impacted by the DCFS. Hamid's going to be on the panel too. So I've got a set of questions I'm going to ask the panel, and then we're going to open it up to you all to just have a conversation with us. Any questions that you have or any comments, we'd love to hear them. So let's just do a quick introduction. You all have heard from Hamid. Hamid Khan from Stop LAPD Spy. My name is Monique Nawel. I'm an organizer here at LA CAN. I'm also a member of the Downtown Women's Action Coalition, DWAC.
Hi, it's not working. My name is Natasha. I am organizer with the Downtown Women's Action Coalition as well.
Hello, I'm Lorraine, and I work with Los Angeles Property Department, LA CAN, wherever I can be of service to make a big help in our community and change it for one heart at a time. Yes, got to.
And again, I'm Kiki, and I'm also an organizer with Downtown Women's Action Coalition.
So thank you all for joining us. The first question I have is not for anybody in particular, it's anyone who wants to hop in. But I want to ask you, what do you think that the DCFS operates with the best interests of children and families?
Not mine, absolute, at my time, absolutely not.
I don't think so either. I don't think they have the best intention of the children, because the process they put the children through is not nothing but traumatizing and abusive. And if they had the children's best interest at heart, they wouldn't even strip them from their families and put them to that.
Oh,
I don't believe that they have the children's best interests at heart because even once they do separate children from families, nine times out of 10, those children get placed into even more abusive homes. And if you had the children's best interest at heart, you would do everything in your power to make sure if I'm taking you from your family somewhere that you're comfortable, then I'm making sure I'm putting you somewhere that is better than where I took you from.
yes.
Thank you. So, I mean, many of us have had contact with DCFS. So I want, if any of you feel comfortable to share some of your experiences, can you tell us about your experiences with DCFS?
I'd like to. Well, mine's happened in the 80s and it was devastating, mostly everybody knows about the 80s when the drugs and alcohol swept through the communities and took good people and turned them into really terrible people or trying to survive it or whatever with the cocaine epidemic. My husband got on it and then I got on a year after him and all my kids was born and everything like that. And the thing, because he was out there and I didn't want him to be out there, so I told him to come home. And when I started, it just threw me against the wall. And I was like a PTA mother. I worked at Townhall Hospital. My kids went to private school. And that was my dream, to have babies. I called my husband home from work to have them. So it wasn't like sex and a baby, he stopped work to come home. Because my temperature was rising and it was time to have a baby. It wasn't an easy thing. We had to work at it. So that's how they became 3 years apart and had 4 children. Oh, and thanks to my oldest son, Mommy, I want a brother. And when he got his brother, because you couldn't go to Toys R Us and buy a brother, so I had to get him a brother. And then when he took care of his little brother, he was so happy. And then, Mommy, I want a sister. So I called my husband home on February 14th, said it's time to have a baby. And he came home and went back, we did it and went back to work. I stood on the stairs and called the doctor. And I said, Doctor, I'm having a baby October 14th. And she came October 14th. And so, well, her sister snuck up. I think she said, well, I want her to be my sister. So she stuck up. She came, hit my last child, my baby girl. Now, nobody asked for her. She was just a blessing baby. But anyway, that's what was my life. My children was my life. And so when the drugs came in the picture, I'm still trying to be mother, PTA meeting, and then on the weekends getting high with my husband, trying to be a good wife. But then it just got so out of whack. And then family members, cousins and stuff calling in, I'm on drugs and all this kind of stuff. And so I lived in a house and I left the house there and in Pomona, left the house on the corner and moved to the Bible Tabernacle in Venice with my children, left my husband, because I wanted to get off this stuff and continue to go back and be a good mother. I never let them see me use or anything. So when I got there, they said, well, if you stay in this program, we're going to get you an apartment that was down the street. And man, that was really cool because I never known anything about the program or even getting offered what I was on. So the social worker called me from the Bible Tabernacle and she said, well, that place is not suitable for your children and we're going to come pick them up. And I called my mother. I said, Mom, can you come? Can you take care of the 4 kids for me until I finish the program? Because we're going to have an apartment. She said, yes, dear. So my mom went to Ralph's to get some food for 4 children. Because she didn't consume that much food in her house because my kids love to eat. So worker came and got my kids from the Bible Tack and my 4 little kids. No, I'm happy though, because I'm going to get I'm in this program, I'm getting an apartment for my baby. Now I'm gonna left the house on the corner, but apartment with my children, we're gonna be safe and secure. But so them days, they don't work over 5 o'clock. So my mom was at Ralph's, so my mother-in-law lived around the corner. Their grandmother, so she took them around there. Like he said, they know where everything's at. They do. The worker took my kids around to my mother-in-law's house. Now, I didn't think that I was gonna be going through a battle trying to get my kids back. They took my children away from me. And they took actually my life away from me. And I didn't know what to do because it was almost 5 o'clock and she couldn't work over 5. So that's why she had to find somewhere quick to take my children to. And that's why I end up having to go to court and try to get my kids back. It was taking too long. I couldn't take it anymore. So I end up homeless. They send me to a program down here because I started drinking again in the beach. I couldn't take it. And I was gonna work so hard to get my children back. And when they took my kids away, they didn't get to go to my mom's house. That was a very devastating thing for a mother that knew when she was having her children and wanted to raise her baby and in a good environment. And I ended up homeless for 8 years. Because they wanted my kids. They want my pretty kids. I had very beautiful children. I have beautiful daughters, and my son was very handsome, and they wanted my little beautiful children. And it took such a long time to get my kids back, you know, by them sweeping people up in the alley, taking me to jail. I mean, police threw dirty pipes next to me. No, doggone well, my pipe was not dirty. They knew I would not have no dirty pipe. Just like he said, they know everything we do. And they saw I was tired though. They saw I was very tired. And so they set me up so I could go to jail. And I did parenting. Now, in the jailhouse, it was a better system than outside. But nobody told me about parenting and all that out here. But when I got in there, I got parenting certificates, parenting this, I got gardening this and doing this, because I needed to do the right thing now. And when I got out, I still went back to the, you know, I had all that certificate and stuff, but being hooked to that cocaine, it just, once I got back out, but they come following you. They'll come following me when I got out of jail, waiting on me to go get some dope. And I said, oh, you can't follow me because what I'm doing is my business. Leave me alone. Because, you know, as soon as you hit it, they're going to put you right back in the jailhouse because the ladies talked about it in there. And I still had a mission to get off this stuff and go back and be with my children, because I wrote them all the time. Every time I got money, I sent them money. It was my life. And if I couldn't have them, I didn't have a life. I met rich people, rich guys that want to take me and live with them. I said, but this is not my life. Where's my children? Right. And when you come home, because you got a lot of money, I'm gonna been and went out there and got me some dope and died up in your house because I had too much. So I had probably had a heart attack or something. But it took a long time. It took a very long time to get my children back. And there was no system out there for this little Black woman. There was no system, and I'm hardcore. And when I say there was no system out there for me, there was no system out there for me. I had to work hard as hell for my goal. And my goal was to get my children back. And when I got too high, I said, God, let me tell you something. If I have to live this life like this, just take me. And he chose not to take me. He chose to get my life together. He chose to help me on my mission that I wanted my children back in my life. And it was not easy. I wanted my 2 daughters, I wanted my sons to be with their mother. And I had to fight for it. I had the no's, I had to walk away and then wait for the yeses to come. And one day a sister saw me in my doorway and she said, no matter what I do today, you're not gonna sleep on those streets no more. And that was October 6, 1994. I went to Acton Hall Center for Women. And I stayed there and I graduated. Then I went back to that program. Got my job at Denny's for 2 years, went back to the program and worked there 15 years. Because I didn't want any woman or anybody to go through what I had to go through. I had to experience to give you love and dignity on your journey back to wherever you was trying to get. And most of the women was about their children. I answered the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning. The lady said the man put me out and my children in the streets and we have nowhere to go. Because I wouldn't give him sex. I'm gonna wash the clothes, cook the food, did everything I could. And at 3 o'clock, this man wants to have sex. And if I didn't give it to him, he put you out. They put lots of women out with their children in the streets. So I encourage no woman to live with no man. I'm trying to tell you, have your own place if you got children. Thank you very much for letting me share. I can go on forever, but I have to let them have it too. But it's very important. And I'm thankful that I can share this because it is more than what the eye meets when it comes to a mother and her child.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share any of their experience with this system?
Yeah, I don't have any children, but I've experienced the DCFS system as a kid a couple of times. The very first time I ever had a social worker come to our house, the neighbors were like the apartment building we were living in at the time. My little brother was just born. I was about 8 years old. And the apartment building wasn't like really kid friendly. A lot of apartment buildings are like that. They're like, no kids running around, no kids. Like they don't really want a lot of little kids in the apartments. And my little brother was born and my mom was like, she was bedridden. She was like really sick. She had been sick her whole pregnancy. And so my little brother was crying and I'm 8, my older brother's 10. Like, we don't know how to like stop this baby from crying. So they called DCFS on my mom and said that my little brother was crying because he didn't have food and he was in there hungry. So the social workers came to our house and they put all of us in separate rooms and was like asking us questions. And it was very much like, does your mom hit you? Like, did you eat today? And just stuff like that. And then they like went through all of our kitchen cabinets and was like looking and making sure there was like milk and stuff and making sure there was food in the house. And it just was very weird because as a kid, I was like, why is this random white lady walking through our house? Like, you know, like, why do I have to even talk to you? And I've always been like the type of person to like be like, I don't understand why this is happening. And like we were saying earlier, like you're deemed aggressive. So it was like, oh, your mom must be like telling you what not to tell us. Because I was like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, I don't know you. I don't like you. I don't know why you're here. But so to them, it was like, oh, we have to look into the mother more because she must be telling her kids not to talk to DCFS because she's doing something wrong. And my mom was amazing. The second time I was in contact with a social worker, we were running late for school and it was me and my older brother's fault. We didn't get up in time, we didn't get dressed, we were lollygagging, and we were running late and mom was like, y'all don't got time to eat breakfast, we gotta go. Like she took us to school and we get to school and me and my older brother were like, shoot, dang, we didn't eat breakfast. Let's just go to the office and tell them like, we hungry and we wanna get breakfast. And so we did. We didn't think it was nothing to it. We were like, she was running late and we didn't get a chance to eat breakfast before mom dropped us off. And so they gave us breakfast, but unbeknownst to us, they didn't tell us anything. We get home and DCFS is at the house investigating us. And they opened the case on my mom. And we went through that process like for a couple of months. They were like finding things. I mean, because like my mom, everything was in order. You know what I'm saying? Everything was fine. We had a place to stay. We had food. So it was just for them to be taking so long to close out my mom's case. They were like, oh, we're coming on a random, and anytime if our clothes were like around on my room floor, like I'll take my shoes off and any kid like backpack on the, you know what I'm saying? And like, they would come in and be like, oh, well, this is a violation, like you have to clean this up. If this is not straightened up the next time we come here, because the kid can trip on those Legos. Like, yeah, like that's every children's bedroom. And then the last time I actually was placed into foster care. I had ran away from home and like I was going through a tough time and I have mental health issues, so I was placed into a psychiatric ward. And when they did that, they found my mom, and I was supposed to go back with my mom, but they were nitpicking. It was what they said was that because my mom had previous cases that they had opened, those times I just mentioned, those previous cases that they had opened wouldn't allow them to give me back to my mom out of the mental health facility. So I had to stay in there 3 more months until they found me a foster home. When I had like a mother I could just go back with. But they took these false, these things that didn't even mean anything and said, well, because we looked into her before, we can't send you back to her from out of here. And I went from being able to go back with my mom out of the psychiatric ward to having to go to a foster home where I was abused even further, where I was neglected, where I didn't get love, where I was called every name in the book. And it was very traumatizing. And that's why I really love like the work that we do, because there was no need for me not to be with my mom. There was no need for me not to be with my mom, and they caused me to be assaulted, harmed, and physically and mentally and emotionally abused. And they didn't care. If I would tell my social worker, she won't let us, she put a lock on the refrigerator, she won't let us eat. And they're like, well, I didn't see a lock. I'm like, but you would believe me if I said my mom didn't. You believe me when I said I was hungry, you were quick to take me from my mom. But when I'm telling you the foster parent is putting a lock on the refrigerator and won't clothe me, you refuse to remove me from this situation. So that's my experience.
So let me, I mean, you raised so many things. There's so much to unpack with what you just said there. And it makes me think about the ways in which they categorize and assess risk. And I'd love to ask you about that, Hamid. But before we go there, Tasha, I know we were talking earlier about culturally the ways they don't understand us, the ways they don't understand Black and brown people, and how just the way that we live, the way that we are, often is in red flags. And talk to that, and also the fact that Kiki just spoke about how much they will invest or ignore what happens in the homes of the foster care, but they're quick to come into our home.
Yeah, well, I can speak from my own personal experience. I was having a birthday party for my daughter, and this girl I knew, she was a big girl, very tall and kind of large, and she had three boys, and those 3 boys were large too, like football players. So they were at my house and they were just having a ball. They basically broke my couch, and it was like food everywhere. Like Lisa, she was making these big old trays of nachos and all this chicken wings and all this crazy stuff. So it was like a crazy party weekend. The kids were swimming and everything. And so my house was like, it was thrashed. And I had waited to go shopping to go get the groceries. But while me and my daughter went and got the groceries, and my plan was to go get the groceries, come back home, clean up, cook dinner, and then we can settle back into our weekly routine. But when I got home with the groceries, as I was unpacking the groceries out the car, a guy said, Natasha Smith. And I said, yes. And he grabbed me by my arm and did some kind of twist. And he handcuffed me, clink, clink. Oh. And I'm like, handcuffs right there. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so my front door is open and my house is thrashed. And my her father was inside the house, like on the computer. So you can look in that door and see him back there. And my daughter's like, let my mama go. Let my mama go. And I'm like, what the heck? And I don't know. I think it was because maybe he wasn't like living a straight, narrow life. What caused my baby's dad to panic and jump out the window instead of come to the door and grab my daughter and like, hey, Tasha, I'll come and visit you, or I put some money on your books, but let me bring my baby in here because I don't want to talk to the cops. He instead jumped out the window, and took off running. So it became a big old scene, helicopters and everything. And now they're inside of my house and they're like, this dirty house, dirty dishes, food over here, couches broke, that, and they're just combing through my house with a fine-tooth comb. And luckily, I had taken some things that my baby dad had a habit of storing his belongings in my daughter's room. And I had just had a fit about it, and it was like, get all this stuff out of here. And so I removed it, and it was a good thing because it was like it had bullets and some other things. And if they would have found that, it would have been like, I don't even know. Well, ultimately, they ended up taking my daughter. I went to jail. He went to jail. They took my daughter, and I was in jail for 2 weeks. And the reason why I was getting arrested was because I had a car that my dad had given me, but my uncle, he put it in his name, so I could drive it from here to Las Vegas. And my baby daddy was getting tickets on it, and so it was coming back to his house. So he reported the car stolen, and so they came to arrest me for it. So I was gonna go to jail anyway. It went until this thing got resolved. But he, on the other hand, he didn't even have to give his name. He could have just came and grabbed my daughter and went in. So when I got out, I had to jump through so many groups. I had to jump through so many groups. And the hardest thing was to go to this place called Child Haven, where I had to visit with my daughter and see her ashy and her hair not combed right and the clothes she had on, and having to leave her every day. Like, I only got to see her twice a week, and I would have to leave her, and it just broke my heart. I had to go, because I have marijuana in my system, I had to go to drug counseling classes, I had to take parenting classes. And this was the drug counseling I had to do 3 times a week, and the parenting classes I had to do 3 times a week, and plus go see my daughter twice a week. And I didn't have no car or anything. I was just like barely getting by. My baby's dad, he was in jail for like 5 months for everything that he did. They called him, he was on the news and everything. So just imagine being in your house and these people are in here doing a little checklist of all your dirtiness in your house, and on the TV, a breaking news shows up, and it's my baby's dad right there with the helicopter on the ground like this. So it was pretty. The hard part about it is that fast forward down the line, after we've gotten her back and everything like this, and we break up, you know what he does? He goes to court and takes my parental rights away from me. He goes to court and he tells the judge all of these bad, nasty things about me. And I could have done the same thing to him. I could have been like, oh, but he does this and he's a criminal and he went to jail for coercion and kidnapping and he's a burglar and he does this and all that. And then what would that have done? That would have put my daughter right back into the system, you know, and neither one of us would have had him. So I just went ahead and fought for my own side, and they took away my parental rights. And then after a time period, I was like, he had got like brainwashed by the system. We had made a pact that we would never get these people involved into our business, that we would be adults and be able to make a plan on how to co-parent. But instead, he got manipulated by the system, and now he's being like a cold-hearted asshole towards me, telling me I need to get my shit together and I need to do this and do that, when he was the one that like drug us down the hill when I was trying to be responsible, a mother and wife and all those things. So the system will judge you based on like the social worker I had when she was a Caucasian lady, young lady with no children, you know, just like happy-go-lucky, just finished college and everything. She didn't really know how to relate to me and what my situation was with the party and the kids, having all those children in the house, having a party. She couldn't relate. So it's very important that the social workers have some type of experience as far as family composition is concerned before they can just go out there taking people's children away from them.
But many of these people, many of these agents that are coming and invading our homes have nothing to do with, you know, they can't relate to who we are.
No, they
They
can't.
can't relate to our household, our cultures, and
Especially in the urban environment, in the urban neighborhoods, there's usually too many people in a place. There's like a 2-bedroom place, and it'll be like a mother, and she has like 4 daughters, and then one of her daughters grows up and has a baby, and that they all live there. They don't understand that because everybody's trying to survive and get by, you know. And it's not for them to judge how people live to get by. It's to judge whether a person is life's in danger, you know, if anything.
So let me ask you, Hamid, can you talk about, I know you had the presentation earlier, but can you talk more about the algorithmic tools that the county uses to predict and decide future risks?
Yeah, I think the stories, absolutely, and thank you so much for sharing the stories, because as you were sharing these stories, it was just almost kind of mapping out the pathway to criminalization. Mapping out how these risk stratification models are used, mapping out how the algorithms are used, mapping out how your lived experience is basically drawn out through mathematical numbers. You're not a human, you're a number, and then you become a number of a vast, sort of a numerical universe that in this whole culture of criminality and punishment. So I think we have to look at it through the cultural lens as well, because living in a white supremacist system, it is built on a culture of punishment. I mean, it's all about retribution and it's about punishment. So how does that punishment gets incorporated into the structure of policing? So I think a couple of things that come up immediately, that we are in Skid Row. And we know the history of Skid Row and how Skid Row has been a laboratory for a lot of policing technologies and policing actions. Whether it's about your license plate reader, whether it's about closed circuit television, or whether it's about what has been known or is known as broken windows policing. Right? I don't know how many people are aware of broken windows policing, but in some, very simply put, that any neighborhood which has a broken window, or they talk about blight or underdeveloped or not clean, it's already the assumption is that crime is going to happen, vice, the language they use, is going to happen, drug dealing is going to happen, prostitution is going to happen. And with that assumption, then they go in and start criminalizing and wanting to banish people, just kind of remove them from that lane. So similarly, if we were to apply that, this is exactly broken windows policing of the system. That, as Tasha was talking about, that okay, what do they go in there? Well, okay, there's the house may be dirty because there's food all over the place without asking. Well, kids were just having a good time. Kids were at a birthday. Kids are going to be kids, or some other stuff going on. But immediately that lens is applied, so the whole household is criminalized. Then all that information it's put into these risk stratification models, which is matched with similar information. Like you look at somebody in the tent outside, then same information from other tents and people who are living in the tents is being used as a baseline. So you're immediately a criminal as well, right? So that immediately happens. Then it goes into these algorithm, which is like they're saying we can predict risk. So it's all about prediction, which is again extremely bogus because it's not about prediction. It's about going and looking for crime. Crime is everywhere. So when Kiki was talking about that, they're finding things, right? They're finding things. So that's exactly the kind of stuff that is going on in these risk predicting models as well. They're called RSM and SDM and various other acronyms that they use. And that's exactly how. So I think the bottom line is that it's about data. It's about that collection of data. It's about how much data is being picked up, because this data is coming from the house. Now, there's other forms, like I showed that example of the Stalker state, where so many different data and data points are being picked up. So it creates this whole criminal portrait of a person, that they are a threat to society. They are a risk to their children. They are going to cause more harm to the neighbors. It's going to bring the neighborhood value down. It's going to turn other kids into these bad kids as well. There's going to be drugs all over the place. There's going to be, sex work going on. There's going to be this going on. So these are the types of models that they're created. So that's where, DCFS has been using these risk predicting models, which are completely debunked. Which have completely been, people have done research after research, whether it's the Allegheny model or some other model that they've been using. So I think that's what we are talking about, and that's where our fight is really. And what we Stop LAPD Spying, we have a whole working group that is working on data abolition.
So I was just thinking when you're talking that, so the data collection, they use it to target a whole group of people. That way they can criminalize the whole neighborhood, because they already know that this neighborhood is dealing with poverty because they set it up that way demographically by depriving certain neighborhoods. Okay, I was in Athens. Athens is near Vermont and 120th. Over there's a Rouse grocery store. At one time, maybe in 2017 or something like that, 16, they were remodeling. They spent $2 million or something remodeling this Rouse. Well, this route after the remodel, did not have a baker, did not have a butcher, did not have a florist, and did not have a pharmacy. Every other route that I went to, I go to routes out in Marina Del Rey, they have Starbucks, they got florists, they got pumpkins sitting outside, water bottles stacked up outside, all kind of things stacked up outside to use. And at this route, you can't even get your name written on your birthday cake. So they know how they set these neighborhoods up to be in poverty. And so I was just thinking that's how they use it to criminalize the entire area of people,
Absolutely.
you know, with the algorithms.
I mean, there's much to be said, but our fight really is about abolishing their data collection. That's really what the fight comes down to.
So you mentioned something earlier, Kiki, about just, you know, you going to school and mentioning that you hadn't had breakfast. So we know that there are all of these insane and bogus, you know, silly, petty ways that mothers and parents are being hunted and persecuted and having their children torn from families. Can you all speak to that? Because, you know, in this report, and I hope everybody gets a chance to read this report, there's information in here that's just sickening. It puts a dollar amount on how much it costs for a child to be in a foster home, how much they pour into these homes, you know, of people that didn't birth the children, that don't have that connection to the children, but they're pouring and investing in these homes and not the families. So can you all speak to that? How does that? Hi, can I say something? Please, and Sarah also, just so that people in the room know, Sarah was part of this work that we've been doing too. Sarah really helped to, you know, inform this report as well. So please, Sarah.
So when you're in foster care yourself, and when you're in foster care yourself, when you turn into an adult, they put you on a list. So they put you on a list, and if anything happens, anything, it could be somebody calling to say they're worried about anything going on in your family. They go to your house, and without asking any questions, without any proof, they do take away your kids. And they make it almost impossible to get them back. And that's kind of what happened to me. In the process of getting your kids back, you have to do whatever they tell you to do. So if they tell you you have to go take parenting classes, therapy, get a psych evaluation, you do have to do all that. And the classes that they tell you to get or to attend, they end up costing thousands of dollars a band. So they want to make it almost impossible for people, especially people that cannot afford it, to be able to get their kids back.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're seeing, not an investment in families and communities, but an investment in tearing communities apart.
I think that was one of the biggest things that I had realized, and we were talking about this earlier, about how, like, if we were hungry, you know what I mean, and we really didn't have food, the all that money that you give to a foster parent, when you take away a child, why not funnel that and say, well, okay, we know the mother might be a little hard. Let's pour in some assistance and some resources to help her be able to give food to her, because it's not malicious intent. It's not like she's like, y'all can't eat like my actual foster mother did, right? It might just be struggling. So why not take all of that hundreds of thousands of dollars and funnel it into the actual families to be out of this poverty situation, so you don't need to remove the children. I think that was like one of the main things I like to focus on too, is like prevention. What are we doing? What resources do we have or that we're funneling money into to prevent kids from being hungry, to prevent families from not having a place to stay, instead of just going like, oh, you got any luck? Give me kids. Oh, you don't got this? Well, goodbye. You know what I mean? Give me kids. Oh, you don't have this? Give me kids. It's the same way as you were mentioning earlier, how they told you to go to a certain program and then they would give you a place out of that program and then said, But the program that we're telling you to go to, the resource we have for you is not suitable for your children. So that means you need to make this program suitable for my children. That's not on me, that's on you.
Amen, amen. And it's also a lot of paperwork that when you're in that situation with your kids, well, I'm a mother, I shouldn't have to be filling out no papers. You have paperwork like this if you want things to go through. If you're not filling out paperwork and doing the footwork, you're gonna have a problem. It's just that simple. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of legal aid work you have to do. And I think it's okay. It's work, but it's what you're gonna stand for. Otherwise, they're gonna sweep you off your feet. Because they don't think you could read or write. So it's always good to have a social worker. At the best thing when we do have to go through a social worker or a counselor or something. Like I went to one stop, I was having problems filling out papers and stuff. I went right there to one stop and they boom, helped me. I was like, God, if I hadn't filled these papers out, I wouldn't have been able to do nothing. Don't ever think you're not smart. You don't ever think that you never need help. Because two heads are always better than one. And a lot of mothers today, I don't care if they're on drugs, alcohol, whatever, they need help to get straight if they don't want their kids taken away from them.
Right.
So where did we get this help from? They should have organizations where, look, I got a come in, let them know, you can come here. You got a problem? We're gonna help you. We know what you're going through. We're gonna help you.
And that's what we want to talk about. Thank you for lifting that too, because you know, when we talk about abolishing the system, when we talk about not having this, I'm gonna take questions in a moment. You know, we know what we need. We have solutions. We know what it is that we need to be well. We know what it is to be able to have healthy families. So I want us to talk more about that. But before we get to that, and I want to open it up to both the audience as well. You know, can we talk about the monetization of this? You know, the profits.
Sorry, what are we talking about?
Profit, profit.
Monetization and profit.
Barely hear you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe I should.
The monetization and profit making.
Okay.
And I think, and this is something that the report also exposes that too, that almost 10 years ago, back in 2012, people may have heard of McLaren Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those recent places that there was. They were getting $270,000 a year for one child. $270,000, if you look back 11 years ago and tagging inflation, that's about 350 grand in today's dollar.
That was taxpayers' money.
Taxpayers' money. That's, so this is where, how much money would a family afford? $270,000, heck, you know, my whole side of my mom's family.
That's because they needed a reason. They needed a reason to say why they needed the money. So when you gave $1, you gave 2, they took 1.
Absolutely.
They had to have a cause, and that's what they did. And they made it a mess making that cause happen because they was greedy to get that money. Because like she said, wouldn't it make sense to send this mother to a program or something with her child? They could both been there, because if they're both can be in the house with the police busting through the house, why can't they have been somewhere with more safer grounds, and the mother could have had a more opportunity to raise her kid with that money?
And it's exactly, I mean, that's why we started off this conversation by saying that this is a carceral system. Just like it's so costly to warehouse and send somebody to prison, right? I mean, the cost that they have every year to maintain these prisons, and somebody who's incarcerated, same thing, the whole goal is to punish them all. Because when we looked at the statistics back in 2020, and I know Chris and all have been doing this work as well, that there are 4 out of LA County's population, there are 4% Black children. But 24% Black children were taken away from their parents. Wow. So when you look at that almost 600% impact, it is because there's so much money to be made. And, you know, I mean, it's just, and it evokes a lot of emotion and anger as well. It's the same thing about trading up the bottom.
It's the same thing in slavery days. It's the same thing in slavery days. The white folks made money off of Black people working for their asses and creating shit for their asses. That's what it is. It's the same shit going on now.
So what I want to thank you.
And you got to put a foundation there to realize why, in order to make a change. And if we keep talking about the same shit over and over and over again, they're gonna just keep on looking and smiling, and bet she don't get the A. Oh, bet she don't get the B, cause we're looking how ignorant she is, cause they keep listening to that bullshit and not making a change. You gotta make a change And you gotta make your own change.
In this way, yes.
for
you know?
righteousness. That's
And that's why
the
it's
thing
important
about it.
to be part of the work that we're doing, I think, in grassroots organizations like this, you know, the fight back and push back. But I want to hear from folk in the audience. I know you all have been listening, so I'm glad you've got questions. I saw the sister at the back put her hand up a while ago, so I'm gonna go straight to you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, everybody. I just really itching more and more towards the edge of my chair. And co-signing to a degree with what you're saying and bringing the two together to a medium. The fact that the same designs and habits from ancient times, how I put it energetically, spiritually, as a medicine woman, I hold out being a Native American national. And it's the same things, you go and you get the research and explore and the data and the, let's see, where's counsel here? The extrinsic element that is there, looming and lurking and puppeteering. The more we focus on being aware and mindful of what is around us, empowering, accepting, I'm seeing this, okay, the steps that need to be taken. Because it's been going on since ancient times. And it's like this on me behind me being displaced from $3 million worth of property that I have. Yeah, I'm holding out my status on my ancestral estate. I'm the sole legal claimant. And I watched the collusory devices with individuals international criminals. I mean, so glaring that when a close business colleague of mine, we researched it, the property and everything, the racketeering, the profiteering that's going on. Oh, it says here it's vacant property. How do you have the criminal go in? Well, you do it. You have what is called collusion, and you aid and abet that to displace the salt, the meat, the humble of this terra firma Pangea that it belongs to. There is that element, puppeteering and lurking and luring. So to just spiritually, energetically, what you embrace and lean into, I'm going to encourage the healing from there, all the way to linking with what you said. Algorithms, they started this on paper. Okay, what's your name? What's your weight? Your eye color, your hair color, your parents, and how many? Okay, and we'll put together our summation. And when we finish with you with this social security number,
Okay.
or your footprint from your birth, and unknowingly and unwillingly, your parents don't know. And now you're in slavery. You're in slavery, and they will take that information, they will break it down, they will break you down to minerals and metal and sell you on the NAS.
Hello.
Thank you,
Yes.
sis, thank you. I want to bring up Chris.
Yeah.
Martin from BLM.
Still doing the little black thing.
So Ricky from BLM, Reimagine Child Safety, we're just gonna share some of the work and some, you know.
All right. Does this thing work? Is this thing on? It's for the Zoom. So the Zoom people can hear me. All right. What's going on, everybody? My name is Chris Martin, and I am a lawyer. I practiced for a good 3 years defending parents in children's court. And I just want to say that it's an honor to be here today. I also direct the legal team for Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. And I'm a member of the Reimagine Child Safety Coalition. It's a coalition of over 40 organizations that are largely composed of abolitionists who seek to fundamentally do away with this so-called child welfare or family regulation system as we know it. In the wake of the George Floyd murder, we arose and decided to do something about this system. And we've come up with a list of 11 demands that are aimed at exactly that. I'm not going to go through all of them with you, but the first one that I think we can all get behind in this building is we want to end all law enforcement partnerships with DCFS. Law enforcement and DCFS collaborations do not keep our children safe. Law enforcement is systematically rooted in the criminalization, racism, and anti-Black beliefs. The LA County Board of Supervisors also recognize that DCFS must confront and address its own foundations in racism and systemic inequality. We know that encouraging collaborations between law enforcement agencies and DCFS creates lasting harms to children and families, especially Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities where violence and family separation have been historically perpetuated by police and by DCFS. We have to end these partnerships. Some of our other demands include providing counsel to parents at the beginning of any DCFS investigation. We have to make it so that parents also get Mirandized before they get interrogated. Because a lot of times out there, people don't know, parents don't know that anything that they say can and will be used against them in the court of law. A lot of times people think that these social workers are their friends. So they tell them everything that the social worker is going to use against them to take their children away. So social workers should have a legal obligation to tell them that they are adversarial to them. I won't be before you long. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we are tired of DCFS criminalizing poverty. We're tired of them criminalizing domestic violence victims. We can envision a time where the county invests in services that bring families together instead of keeping families apart. Now is the time to fight for that. And we are doing the policy work that can make that happen. We meet every other Thursday via Zoom at 5:30. And you can visit our website at reimaginechildsafety.org. I'm gonna put in a sign-up sheet back here for y'all. So thank you so much.
I'm gonna go around the room and just have a card, Gloria.
No, I'm ready. Okay, my name's Carrie, and I just want to take something about those young ladies who did this poem. If we have more of you, I mean, what a thinker, okay? It'll go like that, and I'm saying that's really you. You're a really good thinker, okay? We need people like you. Now, two other little things. In, the Patricia Cooler's book, she said white women got away in high school, got away with smoking grass. She didn't. She was sent to the principal right away and smoking grass because of white. Also with myself, I look pretty much white. Nobody thought I had any problem. I used to be near police cops. They're total gentlemanly around me. I had problems. Yeah. But anyway, and one other thing, this Chris Martin, what he said was wonderful, perfect, everything. I think he's at Melania Abdullah's thing on Wednesday. Anyway, she is excellent. I told her I went concerning my dead son 28 years ago. I told her CJ Silverman, I paid him like $2,000. He did nothing for me. And then she said, go to this lawyer right here. The funniest thing is, I see it's not his fault. He didn't show up. I made an appointment with you to show up at Slauson and something at a Starbucks. First of all, I know you didn't do it on purpose. I hear you. What you are, you're just like Melania Abdullah, who told me to go to you. Anyway, I'm going to straighten it out with you maybe another time. I can tell you didn't do it on purpose, miss the point.
Anyway, that's all. But I
did show up, but I did not see you there. I waited for you for like an hour.
No, I was there now for an hour. Yeah.
So maybe. Because we don't have much time, but I want to make sure that everybody in the group gets to speak. So can I just ask, when you either ask your question or make a comment, just keep it real short. Okay, just kind of be to the point. So I had Lex and I saw Bamboo and someone at the front. Lex.
Yeah, for the panel, one, what you said earlier, comment about emotional scars is, this is one of the harms, and you mentioned it, Monique, as well, that people talk about the police, they talk about prison. There's a lot of parts of state violence that get talked about a lot. They don't talk about DCFS, nor do we as kids, when we go through it, get conditioned to talk about it. So you're usually deep into your adulthood before you even make any connections about the impacts that happen. And one of the impacts of family separation, of state violence, is the trust that gets broken, is that even when you're on the other side of it, you don't get that trust back. And the kids stop trusting each other, they stop trusting the parents, and even though it wasn't the parents' fault or the other cousin's fault, sibling's fault, the home is sacred, and once they come inside, that's broken. It no longer feels safe anymore. They've come inside and they've done something, they've taken you apart, and trust is broken, including kind of the lack of skills we talk about it. So I bring that up because I, looking backwards, but at the same time looking forward, where we know the only way, when we talk about abolishing, part of it is not always fighting against, we have to fight against, but also building an alternative to it, which is having our families be together and refusing to let them be taken apart, even if someone's getting hot, even if someone's done some bad things or has a gun, still not an excuse to take a family apart. And only in low-income communities does that happen, because in wealthy communities, people are getting high and have guns too, but it's the kids get to stay together. Obviously, the class analysis needs to not be ignored, but the question for you guys is, if you care to, it's the thing, even myself, I'm still processing deep in my adulthood, like the trust never was regained. What work have you done around that? And what work can we do kind of collectively or build in order to kind of reclaim trust that the system took from us? Because they didn't stick around to let us point the fingers correctly at them, if that makes sense. But just for the piece about emotional scars, it's something I'm still thinking about. Because even, within my own family, with many others, that trust never gets rebuilt. And I think it's not because it can't be rebuilt, it's because we've never been encouraged to try. And I feel very moved hearing you talk, so curious to hear from you guys about that.
Good. Excellent. The trust in the system? No,
Within the family.
Within the family, okay. Who wants to?
I can speak to that a little bit. I think one thing that we're also trying to focus on here and trying to push and get started is just community-based programs, programs where we don't need someone else from outside to come in and say, this is what needs to, or has to, no, where I can go to my neighbor, or I can go to my uncle or my aunt, or just, just people around in our community that are looking out for each other. Hey, I know you might not got no bread right now. I ain't got no mayonnaise. Let's trade off. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like just building those connections and stuff like this, coming to the town halls, just building more connections in your community will build that trust within each other. And that way we gonna say, we don't need you. No, I took care of it already with Uncle Billy and you know what I'm saying? So I think we just have to build community more, and then that trust will flourish in itself. Because once, you're gonna be a little skeptical. I don't know. But once someone keeps on and they're like, I'm here for you when you're ready. Well, I got you when I'm here, and you see that is true, then that trust will immediately flourish on its own,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just I just want to make 2 comments. United States is the only country when they ask you for your race, your anything that they ask you, for example, when you travel, your race, your ethnicity, etc. When you go to other countries, you travel, they will only ask you your citizenship. Right? It's the only country that uses this algorithm to segregate people. That starts also with women, pregnant women, we know about this algorithm. I'm a midwife. And I know about, I'm a midwife, I travel everywhere, but I know that the first thing that I saw about the algorithm was here. When you classify women, is a yes, no, right? Are you a woman? Yes, okay. No, that goes to another page. Now, when you're a woman, are you pregnant? Yes. What's your race, your gender, etc. And at the same time, when they started, we know at the end of the algorithm, you are already in the brown, black, people of color, right? And brown, you know already that an indigenous, that you will be mistreated at the hospital. There is two things also that you need to know with Dr. Sims, who was performing surgery on Black women, hysterectomy, saying that Black women don't feel the pain, Black and brown don't feel pain. You know, it's how it was, they call it the father of gynecology, that he was in fact doing that on Black women, because in their mindset, even if you go to hospital today, the way that we treat you, and I have an incident yesterday, and I was talking to my colleagues about that, by your appearance, they will mistreat you because they have already the cliche in their mindset. And the last thing is also, there was during the slavery, rape was legal. Rape, there is a book named When Rape Was Legal, is everywhere. You can look at it and you will see exactly who was the person, who are the couple, the women specifically, who are allowing their husband to rape Black women. And they were just shutting their eyes, you know, also about one of the president was wife was a Black woman and have his descendants, right, who are already today, we know that they are Black, but you know who they are. He was hiding, standing behind a curtain to make sure that he will do what he want to do. Now, what can we do to break this system? There is a way to break this algorithm. We have to learn it because algorithm is numbers. You have to know that you don't have to answer to all the questions they ask you. I have a daughter that is Latino, Nicaraguayan, and Senegalese. When we ask her your race, she writes others. She lost them already, right? What is others? She will never specify who she is because she doesn't want to be in the box. Meaning how we can work it out, work it out in a way that we can break that. This is our goal, to start by the grassroots, as you say, to make sure that will not happen to our next generation. Because we are here today, but what will happen to our daughter if we continue to do that, to our boys if we continue to do that? We know all what they are doing and how they are checking us every day. Thank you, and sorry for being on.
Very good. Thank you for that. I have two recommendations. One, we need to make sure that ASPA is repealed. ASPA, which was passed in 1996, was the brainchild of Hillary Clinton. ASPA stands for Adoption and Safe Family Act. And what it is about is they use poverty as the check to take the children. That is what the whole bill is about. So if that is the reason for the bill for snatching, then that means at least 70 to 80% of our children should be snatched because of poverty. So we need to repeal it. That's a federal law. And yes. The other thing too is, you know, they killed Roe v. Wade. I think whatever they call it nowadays. The bottom line is, since abortion is illegal, I have a feeling that using, because you know many women can't afford the baby very quickly, you know. I think they're going to accelerate snatching their children. Use it again, NASPA. And another thing, relative to NASPA, as a mention of it, I would recommend, I'm recommending now, that especially using the lawyers, that we file with the United Nations, file a claim dealing with the fact that we're dealing with genocide. Actually, the United Nations rights of there's only one country in the world who did not sign that universal law on the nations, that's the United States.
Wow.
So, anyway, those are that big. Oh, that is for me.
My name is Robert Strong. When I was a young man, I was one of those naive caseworkers. I worked in the field and I didn't last, that long. I got fired eventually for blowing a whistle. And I became militant after that. But that's about 10 years in my last place. But I worked at Children's Institute.
Yeah, children.
I was there for like 5 years, and I noticed when I was there, and I did that right out of college. I was a young man, kind of optimistic, it's like, I want to help people. And but I noticed we were supposed to go in and do trauma therapy for these children that were removed. And I noticed, and I kept reporting this to my supervisors, over 50% of my clients, when they're ranking the traumas that they've experienced, that they want to talk about in the trauma narrative, almost all of them, the attachment and separation trauma from the parents and the intervention of police was more traumatizing than any of the purported reasons for which the children were taken out in the first place. And
That's right.
all of your stories, they sounded like clients. I mean, I felt them viscerally because they sounded like a lot of clients that I had, and I would continue speaking up, and I get written up for speaking up. And I started working with adults at the Hollywood DMH clinic, and figured that's a job I could do to stay out of trouble. I'm an activist, low key, and they don't know that, but it all came to a head in 2020. That's when this issue. I had a client who came from Las Vegas to take her daughter to see the ocean on her birthday. She left her backpack on the bus, had a panic attack about it, like I would. And she went into the nearby clinic, which is supposed to be a safe place to use a telephone and call your cousin and say, hey, yo, wire me some money. I lost my thing on the bus. But instead of helping her, they immediately looked at her and went, oh, a hysterical Black woman. They shot her up full of Thorazine, and when she woke up, her kids were gone. And she freaked out like anybody would, and they shot her up with more Thorazine and hospitalized her. Instead of going back to, she had a regular job at a nice condo in Las Vegas. Instead of going back to there, she chose to stay in a COVID shelter so she could be close to where her kids had been placed. And I just lost my mind over this because I had kids about their age. And if that would happen to me, I would have just gone, I would have gone postal. And those kids one of them got molested in one of the foster homes. And I kept on demanding that they fix this. The only reason ultimately that they removed this woman's children was because she was a Black woman with cannabis in her pocket. Ultimately, that was it. That's what it came down to. All the rest of the report was bullshit. And I'd seen this stuff before when I was working at Children's Institute, and I was starting to feel like so much of American psychology was almost like an extension of this whole sort of carceral system that seeks to control people and tries to cause people to think that, oh, my problems are my fault. So if I do enough individual therapy, all my problems will go away. When really most of the problems are the system. Most of it is about class oppression. And it took me a while to really be able to admit that. And because I kept speaking up about the issue, I eventually got fired. I mean, they were looking for reasons to fire me anyway, but because I've been a burn of the saddle for years. But that one was the last straw in 2020. And I gave up trying to look professional for that and started publishing the stories about this in the Black Panther paper and the White Panthers of the United But my client, she eventually got her children back. The social worker literally told her if she went to the media, because I tried to hook her up with an NPR journalist to tell her story because nobody was doing a goddamn thing. And she told my client if she went to the media, she would never get her children back. I mean, what level of
If the gag order cannot speak.
Yeah, it's a-
Order even speak, they won't get.
Yeah. I've been waiting for something like this to happen, and I'm looking forward to connecting more on how to be involved.
It's the comment, is that okay? When I tell people I organize for the, with Reimagine Child Safety for the abolition of DCFS, if you get the same exact reaction as you do when you tell people you're an abolitionist when it comes to police. The same exact thing. People have like, we have an it's education, but it's also, we have to get people to appreciate the value of imagination, like that, well, what would we do without police? They keep us safe. What would we do without DCFS? They save the children. They don't do any of that. They never do any of that. They don't save the children. We have to imagine a world where, like communities help each other, like, like if you have the bread and you have the mayo. I mean, communities do that and can do that. And,
They used to.
it's just frustrating because it feels sometimes like we haven't made any inroads in just getting people to imagine the world that we like to live in, and where we don't need those are not public safety systems. Totally, I agree. So, yeah. Hi, I'm really Martin. And I remember I got a call last year, and so one of the questions I will have for the panelists, who can I call as a resource that will argue on behalf of the parent and children? So anyway, there was a mother that called. What happened was she left the domestic abuse situation, and she had 2 babies, and one was like 17 months, and then the other one was like 3 years old. And because she was poor and she didn't have an address, they took the children away. And the baby wasn't even, the youngest one was 17 months old, hadn't even been there a week and was sexually assaulted. 17 months. And when she told the social worker said that it was her fault.
Oh.
That's what happened to the baby, but the baby was perfectly healthy, right? When they were taken away from her. So this happened.
Right.
And it just reminded me so much, because if the children are going to be taken away, they should go to a better security those rooms right there. Yeah. So anyway, and I was able to finally call someone at a church, and then they told me about a resource, and then she had to go talk to the judge. And whoever I'm not sure about the process when it goes to the judge or whatever, but the advocate, whoever it was, told her to admit that it was her fault that her children were being abused in the foster care system. And she made the decision not to, say that she was guilty. And then we lost contact. But my thing is, we have a maternal health resource guide. And I think that we need to have some kind of resource in there because we get these kind of calls a lot. So who is it that we can use as a resource that would argue on behalf of our women and our babies? Well, that's the question I have.
That's a strong question.
I think there are resources in the room. And I think part of the work that we're doing is to fight back against what's happening to us. And I know I heard my brother saying up in New York talking about, some of the legal ways that what that person be supported. But I think it's happening to some of the resources in the room, things that happen in the community.
Monique, please, I can't hear you.
I'm saying there are resources in the room that we can tap into. There's community organizing and things happening in the room that folk can tap into.
Somebody please, because me being displaced out of property, that I full well have legal claim to. And now I'm displaced in a situation. This is what I tried to get you, where I see encroaching upon me as a woman, an agenda for violation. It's very disturbing. And it started with my actually having someone accost me, and I had to defend myself. And then it's like, you can't be here anymore. Really? Okay, and now the very same circle, someone in, you look so nice. I see it. I see it. With the training I've had in boot camp, what's at 12, what's at 3, what's at 6, what's at 9? And another thing with the algorithms and everything being cloud climbing, there's a big sister before it all started, and they said from social engineering, the internet lowers the IQ. The mind can only focus on one thing at a time. If you have information that here, and it's deliberate, it will spread you. Come off of here, this little teeny screen, and come here. We're humanistic in here.
So I want to make sure that everybody will get some chance. I'm gonna give us a question, let's just make sure that everybody else.
I'm just trying to make sure I don't get violated first. You know, then I already had on a federal criminal level. And that's a right thing coming to my physical. Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions?
I just had a comment, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm all for abolishing, I'm an optimist, and I'm really organizing anybody. And I believe that we have to destroy the data systems, like I said, the algorithms, and it's all about controlling and putting people in jail. And I say about everything about it.
First of all, DCFS have never had an interest of the best interest of the children. Because the best interest of DCFS is the money that they can have. As the lady said, with the ASFA law that passed, they give the right to the people who are fostering to get the children out, because that is where the money comes. Because they will not pay another to watch after the child, but they will have the money to pay the foster parent. Yeah. Because they say, oh, in the family, so we don't get in the family, let's say we make $600. It depends on the rate that they of a child, depending on the situation that they say, oh, the child having fraud. So they label it based on who's gonna take that child. That is number one. And if the child is placed in the family, grandmother, uncle, no, it's a no, because they will not make the money. The federal agencies are because many families who get investigated.
Whoever that is, can you turn your phone off, please?
Having a house or something, they are around $2,000 to rent an immediately home for the mother and the child. How many social workers speak about that? None, because they cannot say they get the money from the federal funding, they put it in their pocket and they come to you. Oh, what you are? Oh, you may doing drugs. Oh, I see you went to the corner there. Oh, you don't have a pay for your child. Oh, look at your house. There is no law that says you can be anywhere and you can be in the middle of nowhere. You are a good mother, you defend your children. They twist it because they use the algorithm that they want to criminalize the people. So what they begin categorizing you, saying you are this, you are that, you are this. And you say you have to do the work. They have all the resources, all the money that keep on. After that, it's like this. They send you to say, oh, you have to go to do classes. But for the moment that you go to do the classes, they have already decided what they're gonna give you. Because by following on different steps, you bring that money. You do one class, they say, oh, this is enough. How much we can get this mama, how much this mama is fighting for their children. So let's get it. They see there are two parents who are gonna fight more for the child because we have a child, we can get a child. And they put the parents against each other. They promise they go, for example, father and mother are fighting. They go to the father. Okay, if you speak against your partner, we're gonna give you this. Or they go to the mother, the see who is, and they promise. The moment that they are reaching what they want to get out of that family, they turn tables all around, they throw you on the shelter. Oh, it's your fault, you need to go and get this, you need to go that. So different things on the court, they are made because when the moment that they give you a dependency lawyer to defend you, you become a child and they take all your rights. You can speak whatever you want to speak. Your case was fixed at the moment that your child was taken. But the decision to take to the children is that each year DCFS have to have a certain amount of families to be investigated. So they have, at least before COVID, it was around 150,000 in Los Angeles area having to be investigated. That means open a case within 3 weeks, decide if the children are taken or the children are not taken. They can see how the parents can put these parents to do classes if we need the money to come in. So they make investigation, you can come back another time, you can come back another one. They see what are the cutest babies. Especially the small babies under 2 years old, they say, who's the cutest? It can be black, brown, green, whatever color, it's cute. Oh, it's very adoptable. When they adopt that child out, that family gets 3,000 minimum without the rate on that baby. That is not to be a family member. And the rate goes higher and higher. They have to have on that court 25 to 26,000 cases each year. We have to have at least 3 and up children, because each child have a case on his own, and each money that comes in is for the child, but you give to the parents. Sorry.
So Cheesecake,
And
I'm sorry,
yeah,
just try to wrap it up. We've only got a few minutes left and we've got some closing comments that we want to make. And also there's a call to action. We want to have more of these meetings and
Yeah.
more of these conversations.
but that's what I'm saying. They have made the system and using the discrimination on every single thing they want to get to. So even if you try to fight it, they have established, they will money go to the DCFS.
Yeah.
And they get it. So they send you to do things. You are not their client. The client is who they have made the agreement. Is you are the third party. So they want to say that you are mental health problems. Oh, yeah, you are schizophrenic. Oh, they will put it out. They will put whatever they want beside, and they have. If you see the statistics, they have period of time that they use different names on different diagnoses for the mothers. I can get on a few court meetings that they have filed against the CFS, and the system go longer and longer for that. It's the thought to their human trafficking. Yeah.
Thank you all. Sorry. Sarah, just quick, some comments.
Speaking on data collection, DCFS, they have a big giant packet on each kid that's in foster care. And the stuff that's in there is crazy. They profile you, everything you do, your behavior, everything that has happened while you were in the foster care system. For me, was young age to 24. So everything that in between those years, everything that I went through, everything that I asked for, maybe I asked for help, asked for therapy, it's in this packet, and they're meant to get rid of it at the age of 18 years old, but they don't. It follows you into adulthood. If something happens that they're investigating you, guess what? They pull up that packet of things that happened in your childhood and they use it against you. And I think that's so wrong. Because if you didn't do anything as an adult to get your kids taken away, they're gonna go into that packet.
Right.
Oh, this happened with the police when she was 12. So maybe we're gonna, there's a risk of something like this happening again with her children, and they use it against you, and I don't know, I think that's so wrong.
Oh,
too.
it's absolutely wrong. Okay, thank you all. So I'm going to bring up Matios just to share some next steps with folk.
Yeah. Hey, folks, my name is Matios. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a community organizer with the Stop LAPD Spine Coalition. Before I start, can we give a hand to the women up front who shared their stories, their trauma, their experiences? I want to acknowledge that even the folks in the audience, this is an incredibly difficult thing to do, to open yourself up in this way. And I'm so grateful that y'all came into this space and shared that of yourselves. And so much of this stuck with me, and I'm really moved on a deep level. And I'm just thinking about some of the things that were said. Lorraine, earlier when you had explicitly said, at that time, there was no system for me. Like, I think that encapsulated so much of it, so much of what we've been kind of getting at, what people here who have been directly impacted already know, which is that the system isn't for us, right? That's the very baseline analysis here. This system isn't for us. If we look at what Kiki shared, right, what everybody else shared, this constant harassment, this targeting, what Sarah just said about after the fact, this information gathering following you, it's adversarial, right? It's beyond not being for us. It's targeting, it's chasing us. It's a centuries long campaign, right? And so that's why we need to think about when we combat these systems, right? Anything the system concedes, right, is not a victory for us, right? We need to consider that. I want to echo what Victoria said at the very top of this conversation in that letter Monique read. We're not fighting for carceral reforms, right? There's no patching this up. It's built to target us, right? So the only solution is to tear this down. I think that begs the question, how do we fight, right? If we're not looking to reform, if we're not looking to fix it, if our only goal is to abolish it, right? And I think we at the coalition, what we talk about and what we think about is when we talk about surveillance, when we talk about targeting, we're not talking about, you know, knowing your individual rights. We're not talking from a place of privacy. It's knowing your fight. It's immersing yourself in community, sharing these shared experiences, right? Assessing the information that we've collected together, gaining an analysis and delegitimizing these people. Shattering that veneer, because when we talk about it in this way, this whole notion that the Department of Child and Family Services exists to help us is ridiculous. It's laughable, right? So we need to delegitimize them. We do that by learning, right? Not by making concessions, not by simple reforms, because we know these DCFS agents, whether they have guns or not, they're cops, right? And even if the cop isn't in the room with you, then he's coming around the corner, right? And so we're inviting folks. This is an incredible report. It's 60 pages. It's detailed. It's information. It's an opportunity to know your fight. We're inviting folks to come on over on June 14th at 4 p.m. That's a Wednesday to read this with us, to have a discussion after the fact, to learn better, to better figure out how we can further delegitimize these systems and get rid of them. And I want to pass it over to Hamid real quick, because I think he's got some points to share up on the board, or maybe even just direct folks that way.
Yeah, I think just quickly, what I did was, as people were sharing their thoughts, I jotted down some of the things, like Kiki said, that, you know, we've got to have community-based programs because DCFS doesn't have an answer for us. And then somebody spoke about the algorithms. So it is data-driven violence, which is somewhere out in the ether zone that is constantly moving through various systems. So we really, really have to stop them from getting more data. So it is about abolishing data. It's about data abolition. It's about racial profiling. Like, you know, the minute just the sister was talking about, like, you know, the minute they saw me as a Black woman, I was, you know, just by the virtue of being Black, I was a criminal. That's the criminalization. That's what happens. So racial profiling is inherent, and it is very much part of it. Data abolition. Then how do we stop them from taking more and more and more information from us? How do we stop doing that? Right. Next thing is about grassroots organizing. That, you know, we can talk about it all day long, but we've got to engage in collective learning. We've got to engage in building that collective power, and we've got to really just go after them. We've got to expose them. We have to go after them. Then, you know, that you spoke about the Adoption and Safe Family Act. It is the very nature of reform, and that's what reform does. That it just rebrands itself in a different pattern of violence. So now this is Adoption and Safe Family Act. What does that mean? Look at the words. It was Safe Family Act, but this is about reform. This is what's done to further criminalize and further, you know, loot people's babies away. That's exactly what's stealing babies. That's what continues to happen. And it's not a rotten apple. Social workers, it's not like one social worker is bad or the other social worker is bad. It's the whole apple orchard is rotten. The whole apple cart is rotten. So we have to talk about institutional violence. The genesis, the root cause is the institution itself. Why the institution was created, why the institution was given this money, why the institution just has these policies. It's a bait. It's a hook and bait, like come into this system and we will warehouse you, we'll warehouse your babies. And it's about building resources. It's about building resources in the community. And it all came from this conversation. This was not something that we already, I was just taking notes and just kind of just writing it down that what people are thinking. So I think going back to Martius's call to action, that's exactly what we are looking to do, that let's start building right here. This is freedom room. And it's everybody, all, you know, our ancestors and our elders surround us. So I think this is what we have to do to be in the spaces. This is where we build up. It's not a top-down thing. Nobody's gonna parachute in there. Nobody's gonna come as a messiah and say that, come, children, I'm gonna take you and save you. We have to protect, we save ourselves. We fight back. We know our fight. We can talk about rights all the time, but the rights are only created to carcerate. It's only about a carceral system that, yeah, you have a right to go visit your child twice a week. You have a right to just like do this. So this is how rights work. So just a call to action, hopefully. So how many people want to be a part of this thing? All right. So did you all sign up? Because, you know, as organizer, we're gonna come after you guys. So June 14th, 4 o'clock here, we're gonna do collective learning. And we're gonna read a page or a couple pages and discuss that what the heck does it mean? We're gonna teach each other what an algorithm is, right? So let's do it. Let's do it.
There's something before we adjourn that is critical for lack of knowledge. Thank you. You will perish. They will crush in on, and there is a bay. Please, with the imagination and what she has shared, please go within, mull within your soul. Be aware and mindful of what your senses are imparting to you, and acknowledge it and take steps on that. If I had not known in a recent situation, number one, with all these arrests, counsel. There can be no arrest, I understand, with federal constitutional law unless there is an injured party. Am I correct on that?
Right.
There has to be an injured party for an arrest. That is constitutional law. And the other one with all of this, oh, you so crazy. There has to be a process that they're going to chuck you 5150 by law, constitutional, descending to federal, down to local. There has to be a process of that before they can. I want to be respectful of time. I'm just trying to share knowledge.
Tasha, do you have a last word?
Yeah, what I wanted to say was gathering here today is the first step in us building power towards us combating this situation. Because we know that when they strip our children from us, they strip us of our generational wealth and our ancestral knowledge, and those things are very important to the future and longevity of our people.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you guys so much.